Welcome, everyone. This is the Grants Online new Federal Program Officer webinar that will go through the steps to create, we've already created, but to prepare a procurement request for our award file package that will be sent to the Grants Management Division to complete processing on the new award. The procurement request has been created once we finish the conduct negotiation step of the universal process or once the start award processing button has been clicked in the competitive process. This is one of 3 documents that create an award file. The initial award file on the Federal Program Office side. The other 2 documents are a NEPA document and a Program Officer Checklist, PO Checklist. So for the procurement request, I'm getting ready to log in, but before I do, I want to switch over to our process map just so you can see the steps that we're about to go through to complete the procurement request. We are on this row of our process map right here, and we are going to, we're logged in as a NOAA user, so we won't be completing the last steps that are needed for our Economic Development Administration users. We will end our procurement request processing right here where it says Request Authorizing Official. Okay, so let's go back and log in. And whoops, let's make sure that there we go. Okay, and we should have a task in our inbox for our procurement request. And we're going to be working on this task right here, the second one that's in my inbox. It is for the award that is going to end in 20. I'm going to click on View to open up my task. And the only option I have is to complete the procurement request. So I'm going to select that option and submit. Okay. For our procurement request, there is a 2-step signature process. There is the request authorizing official, who is the person that is the authoritative person to commit funds for your program office. That person has a role on their Grants Online account called Budget Officer. And not only do they have a role called Budget Officer, but along with that role is a threshold amount. So they are able to approve procurement requests only up to the threshold amount that is assigned to their role of Budget Officer in Grants Online. In addition to the authorizing official / budget officer, there's another person that signs off on this document called the procurement request, and that is the requester. In many cases, and probably the majority of cases, the assigned program officer makes themselves the requester, and then they send it on to the authorizing official for final approval. If the award file, any parts of the award file should be reviewed by other people in the program office before the award file is sent over to the Grants Management Division. Those other people need to be added right here where it says additional reviewers. This allows the award package to flow through other people in the program office so that they can see, even though the reviewers are on the procurement request, it still allows the other reviewers to see the entire package. So let's start by adding the folks that we need to put on to this procurement request. We're going to use our user called NOAA Official for our authorizing official. That's him. And I'm going to add myself as the requester, myself being the assigned program officer. At this point, the system has already filled in the federal share amount, which it has gotten from that first line of funding off of the application. Remember, we took our application funding and we split it into 2 years of funding. The system looks at the very first line of funding when you're processing a new award, and it will take that amount and place it automatically into the procurement request. Now we have to assign some accounting lines to that funding, and then we do that right here with this link here. These accounting lines are lines that are in, they're called ACCS lines, and they are the codes that are in our financial system that are used to hold the appropriations of funds that have been given to each program office. So at this point, we're going to use some codes that we use in our training class. I'm just going to fill in these codes here. I'm not going to fill in the rest of these boxes on the organization line because they're all zeros. As long as I don't fill them in, the system will fill in the rest of the boxes with zeros. So I don't have to keep entering data there. All right, so I've put in a bunch of codes here that you will need to get from your own budget office. And then if you don't know the codes, you need to put something in. Your budget office people are going to have to give you correct codes because you're going to have to validate them against the data that we have in our accounting system. So at this point, I have put in the codes, I have put in the money, and I need to save before I go any further. Notice I skipped this link right here. I need to save this record first. Okay, now I have one line that has my code, and it has the funds, but it doesn't have all of the codes yet. Notice that the program code right here is just a bunch of dashes, it's blank, and also my unique account ID is blank. So there's still a few more things we have to do while on the screen before we are complete. In order to get the program code in, as well as the correct fund code, what we have to do is click this button right here that says DW Validate. DW stands for Data Warehouse. It is a set of tables in the CBS system, in our accounting system, where we get lookup data to validate whether the codes that we're using are accurate codes for this fiscal year. So when we click on this button, what the system is doing is checking a lookup table that we have copied from the data warehouse to make sure that these codes that I put in are all valid codes. Notice also that the zeros have been filled in. Once I hit the save key, the zeros get filled in on the organization. So now I know that my codes are valid, but there's still one more thing that needs to be done. We still need to get our unique account ID. That is an identifier that is used in the ASAP system, which is the Department of Treasury system that our recipients use in order to draw down their funds. This particular feature here is only used for our NOAA awards. Our other bureaus do not use this particular feature. Also, within NOAA, there is a program called the Cooperative Institute Program. The Cooperative Institute Program is the only program in NOAA that does not use this feature here. So all other programs in NOAA have to click on this link where it says Select Descriptor, and it'll bring up a page for your particular line office that has a list of descriptors. I only have a couple here for training. but most of the line offices have several items that you can choose from. In order to know which one to choose from, again, you need to talk with your budget people, and they can provide guidance to you as to which descriptor will go with the accounting codes that you are using. Okay, at this point, we have completed all of the data fields for our accounting line. We can now click the Cancel/Done button. And basically, it's cancel or done because they both take you off of this page onto the next page.
Before you do that, I have two questions.
2 questions. Okay, so let's take some questions. I'm going to show you how to get back to that accounting line. Now that I have put it on the main page, in order to get back, I just go to the far right and click Edit, and it brings that screen back up. So what questions do we have at this point?
Does all the funding amounts and accounting amounts need to be rounded to the dollar?
Oh.
Or can we also use cents, less than $1?
Okay, the system does allow cents. The system does allow cents. You need to talk with your budget people if that's what they want to do, if they want to take it down to the cents level. I know in some cases in the past there has been rounding, but rounding can cause you to have insufficient funds if you don't round properly within the allocation that you have. So if you need to use exact amounts, the system does accommodate dollars and cents.
Okay, second question. Does the prior year column only, is the prior year column only used if it is the second year funding?
No. Prior year funds, very good. The question again, let me repeat to make sure everyone heard. Is this prior year fund flag used for the second year funding? And no, this prior year fund flag is used if you are actually using accounting lines that have a fiscal year prior to the current fiscal year. So if you have some funds that are carried over from a previous fiscal year, they're still available for you to use, and they have not been transferred into a accounting line with the current fiscal year on it, then you would have to change the flag right here to prior year fund yes. That is that causes some additional work for you in the Federal Program Office. We're not going to demonstrate it right now in this procurement request webinar because we are staying on what we call the happy path. And using prior year funds is not exactly the happy path. I mean, it's not a sad path, but it's a little bit more involved than the normal path that we follow. But yes, if you need to use funds from a previous fiscal year, and if in the accounting system they're still associated with a previous fiscal year in the accounting system, you would change prior year fund to yes. Second year funds, when you get to that second year, it'll be the current year at that point. If you need to use funds from the second year and still in the first year, that's okay. The system allows you to use any of the dollar amount that you have on the entire application at any point in time. If you have a combination of current year and prior year funding lines, then you just need to use the appropriate flag for each individual accounting line. Okay? Any other questions before I move on?
That's it for now.
Now, for the purposes of training, we're only putting one accounting line on our award, but you can continue to add as many accounting lines as necessary until the total amount adds up to the federal share that you have here at the top. Okay, now because this particular award is also using matching funds, we indicate that right here on our procurement request screen. 5,000, here's the 5,000. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. go back, and here's our $5,000. All right, so we now have a accounting line. It has been validated at the data warehouse. There's another validate button on this screen at the very bottom. This button is validating against the main CBS table. This one actually will allow you to determine whether or not you actually have funds in those accounting lines that are sufficient to cover this particular award at this moment in time. It is a live transaction to check your funds at this moment in time. There's no telling if, 10 minutes later, another transaction takes place and uses up that funds. You can't help that and you can't stop that. But you can always tell using this button if you have funds right at this moment in time. So if I click this link, a transaction goes out to CBS and it's checking the funds availability for the accounting lines that I have on my award. So now it has just come back and told me that the status is valid. That means I do have enough funding for this award at this moment in time. Okay, so at that point I'm going to click Save and return to main, and I am going to forward my procurement request to the requester. Because I made myself the requester, I just get a task immediately right back into my own inbox. It's another procurement request task, but this time I'm switching hats and I am the requester. So I'm going to click View, and this time I'm going to click Approve the procurement request. And my procurement request is now sent to the next step in workflow. Let's look at our workflow. As the requester, I've just completed this step here and it has moved on to the Request Authorizing Official. So I'm going to go ahead and log off and log in as the Authorizing Official. All right, let's check out our task box, and here it is. Here is the procurement request task we just sent. And now I have an approved option as the authorizing official. Of course, I should review it first, so at the bottom you have your review option. You get a chance to look at all of the data. Sometimes the award file is sent to the procurement request, is sent to the authorizing official without the descriptor on it, or sometimes without the data warehouse validation being done. In those cases, the budget officer or the authorizing official, same person, that person is not able to approve the procurement request until both of these have been taken care of. Now, the procurement request is open to the authorizing official. They can actually take the actions necessary to edit this line and add the missing data. But also, let's go ahead and click Save and return to main. They have an option to return the procurement request back to the program officer so that the program officer can fix those things that are missing. Until the descriptor is on and the data warehouse flag has been changed to yes, the budget officer will not have this approved option. Now, at this point, when the budget officer selects the approve option and submit, the system is going in the background and it is doing the same thing that we did a moment ago when we clicked on the CBS Validate button. The system automatically goes out to CBS to check to see if there's funding available at the time that the authorizing official is taking the step to approve the procurement request. If there is no funding, then the authorizing official will not be able to approve the procurement request. So there has to be funding right at that moment in time. So at this point, there was funding in those lines, and we are done with this line of the process map for the procurement request. Once we've done that, I'm going to log off. And we're technically finished with the procurement request part of the webinar. And I'm going to take one more step here, and I'm going to show you how to forward your award file onto the Grants Management Division for them to complete their processing. So I'm going to log back in as the assigned program officer. And I'm going to go to my tasks. And for award number 20, I only have one task in my inbox now. I don't have a procurement request, I don't have a PO checklist, and I don't have a NEPA document because all of those have already previously been completed and have been sent through their workflow. Now I'm ready to send my completed package on to the Grants Management Division. So I'm going to use this task here, which gets created after you certify your PO checklist. Once I click View, if I scroll down on the screen, I'm looking for this nice green check box. If I don't have that check mark, I cannot forward a complete award package to the Grants Management Division. There is a caveat and there is an exception to allowing forwarding of the award file to the Grants Management Division without all of the actions being done. But that is not the happy path, so we're not going to talk about it right now. We will do some other webinars where we kind of go off the happy path and we talk about some other ways to process your awards. But right now we're going through the normal process in this particular webinar. So we are happy now because all of our processes now have been completed. The NEPA official has approved the NEPA document. The authorizing official has approved the procurement request, and the assigned program officer, who is the person I'm logged into, has certified the program officer checklist. So we can now forward the award file to the grant specialist. There is another option that says forward and ignore warnings. That's rarely used, but in case you get a warning message back from the CBS system, not an error will stop submission of this to the Grants Management Division, but a warning is just that. It's just informational, and if you want to submit it anyway to the grant specialist, if you get a warning, you have to use that particular option. But in order to get it to GMD, most of the time you just need to use the top option to forward the award file to the grant specialist. I'm going to go ahead and click on that option. At this point, before I send the award file to the grant specialist, I'm going to use this blue box that says your comments. I have not been using it in some of the other webinars up to now, but it is important when you send your award file over to your grant specialist that you put in a comment just to give them a high-level view of this particular grant award. You might talk with your grant specialist to kind of get some language that they're looking for. But basically, you want to say all due diligence from the program office standpoint has been completed. This application package is being submitted for final or processing. And you might tell them a little bit more about the project itself. I'm not going to put any more in here, but you might give them a little bit more of a high-level view of this specific project on this award. Okay, I'm going to save this comment because I want to show you one more thing before we actually forward the award file to the Grants Management Division. As you know, we have been working on lots of different documents in Grants Online. And at this point, we have pulled everything together into this entity called an award file. Let's just scroll down on the award file, and you will be able to see the sub-documents that are currently on the award file. They include the application itself, the Program Officer Checklist, the NEPA, the Procurement Request, and this document is a legacy document we used to call the phase sheet, Federal Assistance Information Sheet, and basically that is just a document that holds some information that will go to the Office of Legislative Affairs. It's a legacy document now because we have a different way of sending the information over to that office, but this is the way it was sent in years past. You also have a link to see the organization profile, so whatever recipient organization has been linked to this particular award file, we are able to click on this link and see information about that recipient. Now, remember each one of these sub-documents has its own workflow history, its own process that we've gone through. So how do we see all of this workflow history together in one place? That's done by this button here that says Print Award File History. So if you click on that, it generates a PDF file, and it pulls together all of the workflow history for each of those documents into one nicely formatted document. So here is our workflow history for our entire award file. It starts with the initial task to review the minimum requirements checklist on the application, and it goes from bottom to top in terms of the sequence of how the actions took place. If you have any comments, they are printed right below the task that the comment is associated with. That comment is also included on the email that goes to the next person in the workflow. So we see we're sitting here on our /revise award file task. We have not started that action, so we're going to go ahead and take that action now. This out, and we're now going to click on the action. We have the action, forward award file to Grant Specialist, and submit. At this point, the system is again checking to make sure that there are funds available in those ACCS lines. Behind the scene, it's doing that check, and it will not allow you to forward if there's insufficient funds. Let's look at the process map again. Notice anytime you see the diamond that indicates a task with a little red set of characters in the middle, that is letting you know that the system is doing a background check against CBS for your funds. All right, let's go here. That task has now left our inbox. Let's go take a look at it using our breadcrumb. And we can see now it is with the Grant Specialist right here. So now it is time for the Grants Management Division to do their processing and turn this award file into a grant award and send it on to the recipient. This is the end of the Procurement Request webinar. We thank you for watching, and we hope you found it informative. Thank you.